speciality lies in the treatment of patients by way of herbal medicine, a combination of Ayurvedic, traditional Chinese, and Western herbal medicine, alongside of other practices such as Reiki and yoga. But I'm not here to preach about herbalism. Although natural medicine has an advantage over biomedicine, that is, God is the most powerful force on its side on this planet. That's nature herself. But there is something more powerful than nature herself. Something that has the ability to create a happy life or an unhappy life. The power to create health or disease. The power to create a content life or the opposite. And that power is within you. That power is called the mind. I want you to leave here today fully understanding what you're capable of, and that destiny, fate, or anything else that applies if you're not in control is just not acceptable. As a Buddhist, I've carried a quote with me for some time, and that is, the Buddha says, the mind is a dangerous master, but a great servant. Think about it for a second. The mind is a dangerous master, but a great servant. If we apply that to a scenario, let's just use a scenario of domestic abuse victims. They're in a relationship, they're in a house, they want to leave, but they don't. There's no bars on the windows, the locks do open, but they don't leave. And in fact, psychologists say it takes a victim 7 times before they leave successfully. Why don't they leave? They can. And most of them have loving families that will help them, but they don't leave the relationship. And that is when the mind stops them from leaving. It's the fear, the frequency of fear and anger and resentment and everything else. But that fear comes from the mind. There's nothing stopping them. There's nothing standing in the way of them leaving but their own mind. And that's what we mean when we say the mind is a dangerous master, but a great servant. If we think about it another way, if I say, do you remember when you actively thought yourself into a bad mood? You can probably give me 5 instances just today. Right? You remembered something from childhood, or you forgot something last week, Tuesday, 2 o'clock, or you left the clothes in the washing machine too long. Doesn't matter, but 5 instances just today. But if I say, do you remember when you actively thought yourself into a good mood? You can't tell me. There's no one instance in your mind right now where you think, oh yeah, I did that. And the reason for that is, it appears that we're not in control of our mind. It feels like we are not in control of our thoughts. But the truth is, if we let the mind control us, control the body, control the moods, emotions, and consequently our actions, what we're truly doing is giving away our sovereignty to the ego. So when we speak about mind, we are really referring to the ego, because most of us, the ego has fully embedded into our mind and they're not separated. So what is the ego? The definition of an ego in a dictionary is this: an inflated feeling of pride in your superiority to others. Egotism, self-importance, pride, pridefulness, feeling of self-respect and personal worth. Sigmund Freud described the ego as the part of the personality that mediates between the identity, the superego, and reality. See, the ego always wants more. Better job, better house, more money, better iPhone, better clothes than someone else. constantly wants more, needs to feel superior to others around him. The ego knows no bound of morality or kindness. It strives on pride and stepping on others' backs so that they could feel better. The spirit, on the other hand, is connected. It's connected to everything on this planet and more. Connectivity between the source, the universe, or God, plants, animals, everything on this plane and in the spiritual realm. You're not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spirit having a human experience. At the end of your shift, meaning lifetime, you take your uniform off, your body, and your soul will live on. So it's crucial to remember how deeply rooted our connectivity is to everything around you, everything that lives and breathes around you. See, the ego separates you from everything, holds you in a space of loneliness. When we surrender to the ego, we suffer. We suffer from depression, anxiety, sadness, and we're not in control. We're not in control. And what happens when we're not in control? We're not connected. And when we're not connected, we lose who we truly are. I'm going to give you some scientific biological researches to prove that you're connected on a scientific level. Because you are connected to everything. You are everything. You're not a drop in the ocean. You are the whole ocean in a drop. Now, let's talk about a bit sciencey, sorry. There's an organ called the pineal gland. It's located between the two halves of the brain and is the size of a grain of rice. And it's at the back of the head right here. This very small organ, the pineal gland, is 10 times more protected than the brain. Why? Because it doesn't do anything like the brain does. Why? Now, this organ has a few functions. One of them is the excretion of hormone of serotonin. It's when the light hits your eye, serotonin is released, and you wake up. And then when it's nighttime and it's dark, it excretes melatonin so you can go to sleep. But its most important function, and the reason why it's protected 10 times more than the brain, is because it holds a molecule called DMT. DMT is released twice in your lifetime, when you are born and when you're dying. Scientists found out that this molecule, DMT, is in everything. Plants, animals, fish life, soil, everything. Everything contains DMT. How is it that we have the same DNA as plants, as animals, as anything that exists? Everyone, everything, biologically, we are connected by DMT, this molecule. So what is it? What is DMT? Like, why do we have it? So, Dr. Rick Strassman in 1991 got FDA approval to do an 11-year research on this. I won't bore you with the details of the research, but I'm going to tell you the conclusion. He concluded DMT is a spirit molecule. It's what holds the spirit to the body. So everything that lives has a spirit. And that spirit is connected by DMT to everything that lives and has lived in the past. But there is another way that we are connected. Now, I'm not talking about the animals and the planet. This is more us, human beings. We are connected by information. This is a connectivity just for our species. No matter how long ago humans existed, no matter how far we will exist, we have a cloud of information that we send information to. And this cloud of information has been existing ever since we have existed. And all of us here have access to this cloud of information. Now, I'm going to explain this a bit more. The way that we have biologically evolved, we also psychologically evolved. So how did we psychologically evolve? We just biologically, yes, we did. We stood up from monkeys and started walking around, great. But psychologically, we evolved because really bodily, we didn't change that much, right? We still have 2 legs, 2 arms. Psychologically, we evolved. And we evolved through something called collective consciousness. Now, I'm going to give you a scientific example that explains this theory. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake did a study on collective consciousness. And what he did was he took a bunch of rats and he put them into an escape room and he timed how long it would to take them to get out and how efficient they were working together and in general how intelligent they were. Now he did the same study, same research with different rats, different time, different location, different continent. And those rats, the second set of rats picked up with the last set of rats left off. So they were quicker, efficient working together, they got out quicker. So he did that again, different continent, different rats, different time, same experiment. And the third group of rats were picking up where the second group of rats left off. So he came up with a theory of Morvic fields, or fields of information. And it's an exchange of information within a universal life force. And he said, natural systems such as termite colonies, pigeons, orchid plants, or even insulin molecules inherit a collective memory from all previous things of their own kind, however far away, however long ago they existed. So they are sending information into a cloud, and when somebody else needs it, they can get that information no matter where in history. So you have access to information from humans that existed 10 million years ago. Doesn't matter when they existed. That information is there, and it's called collective consciousness. And that makes us humans connected from the very beginning of time. The level of access to this, I'll fall apart here, sorry, no fashion sense. The level of access to this collective consciousness depends how well you are able to control your mind. The level of access to information depends how close you are to spirit and how further away you are from your ego. The pathway to reach the spirit and making your mind your servant is done one way and one way only: meditation. There's a quote I teach my yoga students, and the quote is, knowledge comes from education, but consciousness can only come from meditation. Well, when we talk about consciousness, what do we really mean? We know what collective consciousness is, but what is consciousness? Consciousness is awareness. The awareness past this realm, the awareness of a bigger picture, the awareness of understanding of everything and everyone around you and yourself. See, humans have lost touch with spirit. As societies across the whole world, we have lost touch with spirit. We are an eclipse of life where we are advertised to constantly that we are one purchase away from happiness. That we are nothing but our university degrees, our monetary value, what we do as a job in society, and then in the midst of mankind bowing down to the economic system, we have forgotten who we truly are. Energy, right? Energy. And the loss of identity has caused this spiritual bankruptcy. And this spiritual bankruptcy has caused a void in us. And this void we are constantly trying to fill with eBay and Amazon and bad relationships and drugs and alcohol, constantly trying to fill it with anything that would take the pain away for a mere second. Spiritual bankruptcy also has a hand to play in disease. See, when the mind is out of control, and as a result the emotions are out of control, anger has taken over, sadness is the predominant mood, anxiety is flaring up, and depression creeps in, the body does not know how to handle these emotions. And it reacts by releasing the fight or flight hormone response. And like I said, biologically, we haven't evolved that much. Psychologically, we have. Biologically, we really haven't. So when we are faced with danger, whether it's a lion or an elephant that's about to trample on you, when we are faced with danger, where we need to run or fight, the fight hormone or adrenaline is released. Now that is the same response as if you are faced with a bill you can't pay, or a relationship that's just breaking down, or a friend you haven't talked to in a while because you fell out. The stresses of life, the body is reacting exactly the same as if you are standing in front of a lion. And what happens when this hormone is released? Adrenaline is in your blood, it's going everywhere, you're in food, fight or flight response mode. What happens? Blood, energy, and reserves are taken from the immunity in your guts and your bowels and pumped into your muscles, so you can fight or flight. Your pupils dilate and your heart is palpitating. Now, normally if you're faced with danger, at some stage, your body will even itself out because you're not in danger anymore. The lion's gone away, or the elephant walked away, or whatever, and you're not in danger anymore. And then your body evens itself out. But what happens if you're continuously in an anxiety mode, and continuously under depression, and continuously under stress of some sort? Then you are depleting your immunity, you are depleting your digestive system, nutrition, oxygen, everything that is needed for the organs are not being delivered efficiently. Your immunity cannot protect you against disease and bacteria because it's lacking blood, reserves, and energy. So when we control the mind, when we can control these emotions of stress, we can control the health of our bodies. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of people in my own clinic that I have treated, how their immunity could not protect them. And sometimes we have unexplainable illnesses. We have no idea how we got these illnesses because we were healthy, we did everything, we ate so well, and we exercised, and yet we're sick. Why are we sick? Why are we sick? And that is because stress. That's a simple answer. We are depleting our reserves. Patient A, 6-year-old woman, vegan and holistic her whole life. She does yoga, she eats well, she's a copy of me. Had a traumatic experience in childhood that flared up in adulthood, and her mind was so focused on it that she just suffered from chronic depression. Eventually, after years of what I view as mental torture, her body just developed Parkinson's disease. Despite the fact that she did everything right. She did everything right, and it's not in her family history, no one in her family suffers from it, but she just developed it. Patient B, 28-year-old father who was angry at his own father. As a child, he was neglected, but not in an abusive manner, more so about not receiving recognition or love. He was angry for many, many, many years, and like a typical man, did not get therapy or didn't talk about it. He held it all in, and he suffered from a very rare knee problem where he couldn't put weight on his knees and he couldn't move them very well. And in Reiki, in energy healing, the knee chakra is considered of moving forward. It's the movement of moving forward. He was quite literally arrested at moving forward, mobility-wise and spiritual growth. 42-year-old woman suffered years from grief after her partner passed away. She developed heart palpitations that was unexplainable. Now let me give you an example in reverse. What the mind can do when it's your servant and not the master. There's one thing I need you to take away from today. Right. There we go. One thing I need you to take away from today. And it is this. The mind can't differentiate between imagination, reality, or memory. It cannot. The body cannot differentiate between reality, imagination, and memory. Let me give you an example. If you close your eyes and you're visualizing going to your fridge, opening the fridge door, getting the lemon out of the fridge, cutting the lemon, and licking the lemon, the saliva in your mouth goes crazy. Even though it's just a visualization, it goes crazy. In the case of PTSD patients, when there is a horrific traumatic memory flaring up, the body acts as if it's happening all over again, because the body cannot differentiate between reality, imagination, and memory. It cannot. Example, patient D, 39-year-old mother with chronic depression and fear of food. She's very malnourished, weak, and motivationless, unable to take care of her children or herself. And then she tried biomedicine, she tried herbal medicine, she tried all the antidepressants, from strong to weak, did not work. After 4 weeks of meditation, an hour a day, she started to eat 3 full meals, remained off her synthetic drugs, medication. No herbs were taken at all during her healing, and 6 months later, she gained weight. She was going to numerous exercise classes, she was spending time with her kids, she had better sleep, and no anxiety was reported. Patient E, woman in her 40s with upper body cancer, was told she had 3 months to live. She refused all treatment and proceeded to fly to Thailand to a meditation retreat. She spent 10 hours a day meditating on her body attacking her cancer. And her body subsequently did. It started to attack the cancer. She was told she was going to die in 3 months, and in 2 months, she was completely cancer-free. There is no drug or herb on this planet that is stronger than your mind. We know this, especially during double-blind placebo research. When we give group A and group B medications, where group A has sugar pills, but they both heal equally. What I'd like you to take away from today is this. Control your mind by way of meditation. You have all the power on this planet, right here. If you let it control you, you are losing your sovereignty. Raise your consciousness. Raise your consciousness. Now, that might just be a walk in the woods where you're just mindful in the here and now. It could be living selflessly or making a vegan meal once a week. It doesn't matter. But raise your consciousness and find a way back to spirit, because the spirit will guide you, and the spirit is the one that can help you tap into the collective consciousness. Information that you cannot learn in books. You cannot, no one can teach you, not me or me. No monk who's been meditating for 40 years can't even teach you. You are your own teacher. Collective consciousness. It's waiting there for you. You can access that information. I want to leave you with this quote. The ego says, when everything falls into place, I will find peace. The spirit says, I will find peace.